is the first of our dollars and cents financial literacy series. We'll have 3 more next Monday on March 31st and on April 8th. All of them will be on Zoom. Tonight, we're talking about how to protect yourself from financial scams. Quick question. I hope you can all hear me. Could you put in the chat or in the Q&A if you can hear me? Also, this is run as a webinar, a Zoom webinar, so nobody has any voice or camera active unless we make it so. So the best way to interact with us would be through the Q&A or the chat. And I will let Brianna introduce Joel.
Hi, thank you all for being here. So tonight, Joel is here with us. He is from MSU, and he has a degree in economics, and he's worked with folks in a variety of different ways to help them with their financial, I guess, not necessarily problems, but their financial journeys throughout life. And now he I'm sorry, having a hard time tonight. But anyway, he's here to help us talk about financial scams and how to protect yourself from them. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Joel. Thank you so much for being here. I'll stop sharing my screen and let you put up your presentation.
All right, thank you, Brianna, and thank you, Carmen, for the nice introduction. Let me share my screen here and then we'll get started. All right, hopefully everyone is seeing my screen. I do have my chat window open and I'll keep it that way throughout the presentation here tonight. So please feel free to ask me questions as we go. As they mentioned, I do work for Montana State University specifically. I work for MSU Extension and I'm housed in the Department of Agricultural Economics and Economics. And primarily, probably the majority of my time I do spend teaching on consumer economic issues, which include things like personal finance, fraud awareness. I am an accredited financial counselor as well. But really one of the main things I do is just try to share information because usually knowledge is a great way for people to prevent themselves from, falling for a financial scam. So tonight, that's kind of what we're going to focus on is some financial scams and specifically some things we've seen here in the last year. So part of the reason, why is this year different? Why is this a topic I want to talk about now? First of all, frauds happen every year, always. So any year we pick, there's certainly new frauds, ongoing frauds, the same old frauds. People are always out there trying to scam people out of their money. But this year specifically, and maybe going back to 2020 as well, there's some new programs that came out because of the stimulus, testing programs, various health-related issues, and that we're not real familiar with. And sometimes new things that we're not familiar with, we may be, tempted to pay for something that we don't need to pay for or something along those lines. So there's some kind of new scams related to that. But then also we had a lot of folks that, had a pretty tough 2020 or 2021 in financial situation, maybe lost job or hours or something like that. So people are looking for financial opportunities and something might come across your phone or email or something that looks pretty good. And maybe it's a scam and you fell for it hoping that would be a good financial opportunity. So that's another reason why this is a good time to kind of, talk about financial scams. And then finally, again, because people lost their jobs, maybe people are filing for unemployment for the first time and are unfamiliar with the process. And again, maybe they can, fall victim to something just because it's their first time utilizing a system like that. And then lastly, because of all this need, a lot of us have, that are in better financial situations have wanted to help others. And, so there's also been some scammers related to charities. So we'll talk a little bit about some of those things and kind of what's new and what's a little bit different with respect to scams currently. All right, so just a couple things. This literally came across my desk yesterday. I saw this, so I added this slide in. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the federal agency that kind of oversees quite a bit of kind of fraud related things. There are some other agencies that get involved, but they recorded 342 consumer complaints in 2020. That's up 54% from 2019. Now, not every one of those is financial related, but to give you an idea, though, 50% increase in complaints across the board, and many of those are financial related. Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, also tracks this in some ways. And they specifically think that frauds related to COVID or COVID testing, COVID treatments has cost Americans about $382 million collectively. So for those that actually lost money, the average was around $330. But just to also give you an idea kind of within that, and I see I got a typo here, it should be median loss for those in their 80s was $900. So as folks get older, they tend to be more likely to fall victim to fraud, and the dollar amounts tend to be higher as well. So although this is good for everyone to know, if you're in your 70s or 80s or 90s, just know that you're a little more at risk, or if you've got relatives or friends or in their 80s or 90s, maybe a little bit of help with them might be appreciated in terms of helping them avoid being scammed. All right, so first of all, I'm going to kind of go through this and talk a little about some different types of scams, and then some tips and some things you can do to kind of protect yourself or prevent these scams from happening to you. So one of them here is going to be a stimulus scam. So, there's been several occasions in the last 13 months, I suppose, where we've had some special legislation from the federal government that resulted in some new programs or some direct payments to consumers. And especially for those folks that were not direct filing and then having direct deposit of their refund, or paying via a direct deposit if they had to pay taxes, or if they were exempt from filing because their income didn't require them to file. They weren't necessarily on record with the IRS, so people would call or send an email saying, hey, if you'd like to get the stimulus payment, you need to send me your bank account information. And they may even ask to, for a fee, we can speed it up and not have a paper check, and you can get it directly processed. So, pay me $10 via your bank account direct deposit, and then we can get this taken care of. Those are kind of the types of ways that someone might approach a consumer in this scam situation. So the way to kind of protect yourself from this is, first of all, if you get a conversation that you didn't initiate, so someone calls you, someone sends you an email or a text message, or even a messenger message, if you didn't initiate that conversation, don't provide any personal data back to that person. So if they call you and are asking for this kind of information, you can write down the information they're providing to you, but don't verify anything for them or provide bank account informations. Go ahead and hang up the phone, or if you did get an email. And then what you can do then is go out and find like the IRS's website in an independent way that you can find it. So go onto their website and find it, look at some past tax document you've received in the past. And then if you are worried of whether or not that was a real call that number that you found or that email address that you were able to locate, and then tell them a little about the situation. Again, don't provide any personal information right away. Just see if they've heard of this scam and if they have any tips. And most likely they're going to tell you, the IRS never asks for you to pay to receive a payment, and they'll tell you some basic things like that that can help you identify relatively quickly whether that might be a scam or not before you've actually lost money to the scam. So, and then again, if they want you to verify things like, your contact information, your address, the IRS and the Treasury Department are going to have that information. So they're not going to need you to provide it to them so they can send you a check. So that's kind of tip number one. I will provide some links here along the way as we go, and I've also got them at the end, but treasury.gov is a great place to look for this particular stimulus scam and some information about it. All right, so another one that I'd say has really popped up here in the last year, unemployment insurance. Because of the pandemic, many people are filing for the first time. Not only did more people lose their jobs, but they also, some of the legislation made people eligible for unemployment benefits that historically have not been eligible. People with gig work, some self-employed people were able to claim benefits, and also at a higher level than historically in the past. So many folks that have never been acquainted with the system and never utilized it are now able and eligible to claim for the first time. But what also happened in that is some people stole your information. They would file, claim, get the benefits, and then here it is the end of the year, and you get a tax form showing that you received unemployment benefits last year, knowing that you did not receive that. Well, this fraud has become common enough that the Montana Department of Labor actually has a fraud hotline. So it's that 406-444-0072, and they can help you, and you certainly will not be the first to report that to them. They also have a website on their Department of Labor website there where they've got a fraud button, and you can also report it that way as well. So that's the best way. If you do receive a unemployment insurance tax form, but you did not actually receive any of those benefits during the year, report it to the Department of Labor, and then they'll walk you through kind of the steps of what needs to happen from this point forward. So that was a little bit of a new one. We haven't seen a whole lot of unemployment scams in the past, but again, just the sheer number of people applying and then the broadening of eligibility to people that historically haven't necessarily claimed unemployment insurance kind of opened the door to that scam. Now, this is a age-old scam as well, the Social Security scam. A letter comes from claiming to be from the Social Security Administration, and they're going to threaten to suspend Social Security benefits. Now, the little bit of a twist this year is they said due to COVID-19 related office closure. And the letter is going to instruct people to call a number that they have provided, and then provide personal information, and may ask for even a payment to restore your benefits. So that's what the common scam is currently looking like, that's kind of floating out there around Social Security. So the way to prevent this, again, so never provide that personal data in a conversation that you didn't initiate. So if you get this letter with a phone number to call, see if you can verify that phone number somewhere else. Can you find it in a phone book? Can you look on past Social Security correspondence you've received from them? Does it seem plausible? Are they offering to suspend your benefits and you're not currently claiming your benefits? There's a lot of red flags there. But again, don't call that phone number back that's on the letter you received, but rather see if you can independently verify that phone number before you make that contact back. And then again, if you do need to call that number back, or maybe you've verified it or you're unable to, and you decide to call it back, don't provide that personal information back to them until you've verified that that is the correct place you're calling and that number is not routed somewhere else. So contact Social Security again at a number that you can find in some source other than that letter that's in question is the best thing to do. And then if they're not 100% sure what you're calling about, tell them about the letter, tell them about the email or however you were contacted, that you think it might be fraudulent, and see if they can verify whether that type of letter has been issued. And they're going to have a record of anything that was sent to you when you call in. So if they can't verify that, yes, we sent this letter, then you know that that previous letter was a fraud, and they may ask you to provide a copy of it so that they can investigate and track down and make sure that other people aren't falling victim to the same scam that they were trying to scam you. Now, this is an interesting one, the stock scams. There have been stock scams for as long as I think there has been a stock market. I recently was reading a book about the Vanderbilts and actually some of the scams that went on around his time back in the 1800s. And things have certainly cleaned up in terms of how the stock market functions since that. But still, different scams are out there. So a couple of different common ones is that people receive a tip, some kind of tip that a company is about to announce that they've got a new, in this case, vaccine or a treatment for coronavirus that the whole rest of the world doesn't know about until tomorrow. But if you buy the stock today, you're going to buy it before the price of the company jumps way up. Is kind of the gist of what goes on. So you've got this one-time opportunity right now to go ahead and invest in this company before that information is public. Okay, so that's the scam. So first of all, prevention on this. One, if there is a specific person trying to sell you this stock, if a broker has reached out to you, you can certainly check to see if that broker is licensed. If it's not your broker that you have a relationship, you must be licensed in the state of Montana to sell securities in Montana. The Montana Commissioners of Security and Insurance is the office that regulates that. That is now Troy Downing's office. So you can certainly visit that company and look up a particular company or brokerage to make sure that that broker is licensed to sell securities. On their website, they have a tool called Broker Check, which is provided by FINRA, which is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. And that's where you can specifically look up actual companies and brokers, and you can look up ABC Brokerage in Bozeman, Montana, and see what licensed brokers they have, when they receive their licenses, if they've had any complaints against them, and those kind of things. So that's a good thing to do in terms of looking for if a broker has reached out to you to purchase something and you're not super sure. A couple other warning signs. Very few legitimate investment opportunities are going to come to you via email or text message with that insider information, specifically if it's from a stranger. And really, in terms of kind of long-term investing, hot tips is not usually the best way to make investments anyways. Most common investors, average folk, we're not day traders. We're not looking to hop in and out of the market based on getting information, 12 hours sooner than someone else. So generally for most, retail investors, that's just not a strategy that we want to approach. There's just too much risk involved with that. Now, there was one here recently that there was kind of a twist on this, but called pump and dump. So this is current investors. So I own some shares of a particular company, and I get on the internet or I get on the phone and I start telling everybody this company is the greatest company ever. We got this new product that's going to come out and the price is going to double really soon. So they want other people to start buying that stock, and hopefully the price of the stock will go up based on this information that they're falsely spreading. And then the original investors, so the person that was telling this story, when the price goes up, they sell out, they make money. And then the new people that purchased have now bought it at a higher price. Pretty soon the truth comes out and the price drops down. So those new investors have lost money. So this is sort of a classic scam that goes on around stocks. So again, when I was reading the Vanderbilt story, this happened several times with some railroading stocks way back in the 1800s. It still happens today. There's also been some, if any of you have been following the GameStop stock sort of controversy over the last few months, it has a little bit of pump and dump sort of related into there, where there was some internet tips on, I believe, Reddit, which got a whole bunch of people to jump in. And then certain investors were actually, that their platform was like, there's something a little fishy here, and they locked people out. And then people weren't real pleased with that platform, that they didn't have the opportunity to get in. But what the platform was worried about and trying to protect their investors from was this pump and dump, basically scam. Now, whether or not they effectively did it or not is a little bit debatable. But kind of the controversy that's going on around that stock is certainly directly related to this pump and dump scam. So again, prevention on this, research that stock independently. If you do have a broker, you've got a relationship, see if you can verify any of that information. If this new information is really new, take a look at what that stock has historically done. Has it had a lot of price swings? What type of business are they in? Is it really likely that they might have a new company, a new product that would really come on the market that would change things as well? Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission can help out investors, and they can actually suspend trading for up to 10 days if they believe that there's false information circulating about a company. Now, just to give you a little bit of an idea, we've had 36, I didn't update my slide. This was, they had 36 companies were suspended from February of 2020 until December 31st of 2020. So this does happen. And actually in 2020, most of the stocks that were suspended were biotech or pharmacy companies. And again, these were all kind of related to pump and dump ideas related around whether a company had a vaccine available or a treatment for coronavirus. And again, this was going to be new information to the market. So people wanted to get in before the information came out. So the SEC actually stepped in and said, we're going to just put a pause on these companies for 10 days and kind of let things sift out a little bit before that happens. Now, one other thing to note with pump and dump scams, you generally don't see these with really large caps. It's just too hard to move the market with, let's say, a company the size of Ford or Coca-Cola or some big name like that. So this is much more likely to be a small company that you may not know a lot about. Again, like many smaller biotech or pharmacy companies, common investors, not a name you're going to know. So a big product hit for a pharmacy company could really change the price of their stock. So they kind of play on that level in the market of these smaller companies that, a big product development might actually really jump the price of that stock up. All right, so coronavirus testing, this has also been something that came out. I think it's getting a little bit less as we've now been 1 year into dealing with coronavirus. But you receive a call from the health department informing you that you've been in close contact with someone with the coronavirus. Again, there's nothing particularly wrong with that. We are doing contact tracing. Health department is here and in many other counties across the country, and they are reaching out to folks to try to identify that to protect our health status. But where the scam comes in is if they then say, well, you need to pay right now over the phone for this coronavirus test that we're going to require you to get. Okay, so that's where the scam part comes in, is they want payment directly over the phone. And anytime they say we need payment right now, that's kind of a red flag that there might be a problem with this. So no healthcare providers that I'm aware of require payment in advance of showing up for the appointment. I have been to certainly most office visits at your doctor's office. They want your insurance card and may ask for the co-payment at the time of the service, but they're certainly not going to require payment when you set up the appointment. So that's kind of a red flag here already. So if you get a call like that and you're not 100% sure, hang up, call the health department at a number that you can independently locate. You can even tell the person on the phone that you're not sure that you're really the health department, and that you're going to hang up and you're going to call the phone number that's listed, in the phone book for them or on their website. And if they're honestly with the health department, they'll have no problem whatsoever with you verifying that they're an authentic individual calling from the health department. So that lets you verify that that call was real. Now, if you call the health department and they're like, oh no, we haven't called you and we certainly wouldn't ask for payment, now you've avoided that scam by not providing information to the original caller. So again, we've said this a couple times, or I have tonight, don't provide any personal information in a conversation that you didn't initiate. Okay, especially financial information. Again, never prepay for a test over the phone. Again, if payment is required for a test, I'm sure you can make the payment at the time of the test is taken. Okay. And in some cases, they may bill you later, like many other medical providers might, but you can certainly find that information out. So a couple of kind of really red flags. Anytime it's a pay now while we're on the phone in a call that you didn't initiate, that's a real red flag that it might be a scam. And then finally, with health departments are not a financial collection agency. If the main focus of that call, turns into what, $40 for a coronavirus test, and it's not about the health situation of you and the county at large, it's likely not going to be a call from the health department. Their main focus is the health of the public, health of you personally. So again, if that focus really shifts to finances, that's a pretty good sign that probably this isn't the health department. All right, another really common scam that I always hate to see, and I always expect that at some point it will go away, but it never seems to, that scammers out there like to prey on older folks, and specifically grandparents wanting to help their grandchildren out. So this happens every year, and it's some twist on this, but you have someone calls and they say, grandma or grandpa, I need some money for an attorney or to get out of jail because I got into trouble on spring break or while we were traveling. And the key here, that one of the things that's going to be key to identifying a scam is, please wire me the money and don't tell mom and dad. So 2 red flags there. 1, wiring the money. Once money's been wired, it's very difficult to get back. So that's a red flag. It's not a way that can be traced very easily. And then second, don't tell mom and dad, or mom or dad, depending on what the situation is. And again, whenever you see that, it's really a red flag Again, why would they not want you to tell your parents? Well, they're going to say, well, I don't want mom and dad to know I got in trouble. But what they're really doing is, one, it's probably not your grandson or granddaughter. Right. So they're trying to make sure that you don't call and verify with mom and dad that, oh, no, well, really, your grandson is here with us. He's just fine. Right. So if they tell you to don't tell, they don't want you to verify the situation and the facts taking place. So the twist here for coronavirus, because it's an age-old scam, but the new twist is I have to quarantine and I can't go to work, so I need some money. Don't tell mom and dad. Please wire me the money. So again, why the don't tell mom and dad? Again, they don't want you to verify the facts of the situation. Why wire me the money? Again, because it's a way to send money that isn't nearly as traceable as, sending a check or making a direct ACH transfer or something along those lines. So that's kind of the twist on it this particular year. So prevention, again, don't provide personal information in that phone call you didn't initiate. So this is someone pretending to be your grandchild. You didn't initiate it, it came from them. Now, if you are thinking, well, maybe this is real, ask them something like, well, what county jail are you in? And then you can then look that number up. You can call that jail back and find out, is my grandson or granddaughter actually a inmate there at that site is one thing you could do to verify it. You can hang up, call your son or daughter, their parent, verify if they can tell you that, oh no, Billy's right here next to me. Or contact your grandchild at the number you have for them. So if they called you claiming to be calling on, the whatever county jail phone number from, call their cell phone. If they pick up and answer and say, well, no, we're just about to sit down for dinner, you'll know that the previous call was a scam. So try to verify anything you can. Certainly call law enforcement in that county where that caller claims to be at, so you can independently verify, if this story is really true. So again, if you didn't initiate that call, please be a little bit wary. Also, specifically, if that phone number came from something that maybe isn't in your contact list, as this is the phone number for your grandson or granddaughter. Again, just another way to verify some of the facts of the case. Now, this again is kind of one of the ones you always hate to see, but scammers certainly don't seem to have any problem utilizing charities and the good work that they do sort of to pull on people's heartstrings and then to utilize that to scam them out of some of their hard-earned money. So there are lots of different kinds of charities across Montana, across Bozeman, across the nation. Some of these charities are very well known. They have a national presence or a community-wide presence, and you might be very familiar with them. There's also some much lesser known charities that also do very good work, right? So it might be a big name like something like, the American Heart Association or United Way, lots of kind of bigger name ones, or maybe your local soup kitchen or the food bank or, animal shelter, whatever it might be. There's lots of great charities out there. Now, within any group of charities, some are going to be slightly better run than others. And there are certainly charities that I would argue are not well run and probably aren't a good investment for your dollar. And I don't mean specifically in terms of what it is they do, but, just like any company that's out there, some companies are just a little better run than others. And that's true of charities as well. So doing a little bit of research is always a good idea with charities, looking into what it is they do, what they're going to do with your money specifically. If they release financial information, how much of their money is spent on fundraising and various different aspects of what it is they do. But people are going to use that charity as kind of part of their scam. And kind of the twist for this year is we've had this real uptick in need because people have lost their job or they've had health related income losses, or they've actually had coronavirus and maybe are unable to work. And in some cases, that may be only 1 or 2 weeks. For other folks, it's been months and months before they can get over this virus, which has some real economic impacts to that particular folks. And, for a lot of other folks, they're saying, well, I've fared really well. My income is stable. I'd really like to help out, my neighbors and my community. So that's kind of where this twist is this year on this charitable giving type scam. So anytime you get a call from a charity, there's a number of things that you should ask and you can do to kind of protect yourself, but also to sort of sort out what I would say a good charity is, and what are some that are, a little bit more questionable, maybe in terms of their tactics. So one question first just to ask is, do you have a prior relationship with this charity? So if you have donated or been associated with the charity, most charities do keep a pretty good list of their donors, and they're likely to call back or send mailings back out to people they've had associations with in the past. So if you have developed a relationship with that charity, you probably know a little bit about them, kind of have some opinion as to whether or not they've done good things in the past. And that can be a great way to make sure that it's a legitimate ask, as if you do, you're kind of expecting a call because they call every year when they do their annual fundraiser or whatever it might be. A red flag might be, though, if they're pressuring you to donate now. So any reputable charity, yes, they may be running a donor drive right now, but every reputable charity that I've ever heard of, if you said, I'm not 100% sure this call is legitimate, I'd like to wait until tomorrow when I can ask my son or daughter to look up your phone number, and we'll call you back. And if you are who you say you are, yes, I'd be happy to donate. And, every good, charity would be happy to talk to a donor that wants to just verify who they are and then make that call a day later or an hour later. But if they're really pressuring you that, oh no, it has to be right now, can't happen, it must happen now, that's again going to be kind of a red flag that maybe something's not quite right with this call, and maybe it's a scam. There are charities that do cold calling. So they've bought a list of phone numbers and they're just calling out of the blue. They have no relationship with you. When I receive these, I like to listen to what they have to say. I never again give out personal information on a call that I don't initiate. So even if it is something that I'm interested in, I might ask for some information about them so that I can independently then look up their website, see if I can find out some of the projects they've been involved in, what communities they work in. Again, and just try to verify some of those things about what it is they do and how they're run before I give any information like that out. And then again, when I'm researching into that, do I know any of their other donors? Are my friends donating to them? What do they have to say about this? Do I know someone who's benefited from their program? Maybe it's Habitat for Humanity, and I know someone that participated in one of their programs, or any kind of a charity like that. Anything that you can get a personal experience of someone that's actually worked with the charity, I think is a great way to verify about the quality of the work that the charity does. Do they have a website with reliable information? If they don't, is there a reason why they don't? Maybe it's a very small charity. I know my daughter goes to a small school, and a Facebook page is the only public information, I guess, on the PTA. Because again, it's a very small scale organization that doesn't raise a great deal of funding any particular year. So there's a reason why. But if there's a large charity asking for big donors and they have no presence that you can find, just kind of a red flag of that doesn't seem quite right. Maybe I should try to verify some more information. And again, there are many great charities that do not have a physical presence in our community. Especially research organizations. There's some great charities that have supported medical research, and really most of their dollars are focused in labs in a very limited number of places. So the fundraising network might be wide. Let's just say American Cancer Society, they may try to fundraise nationwide, but the research is happening in a very small footprint in terms of where this is happening. So it makes sense that they don't have a physical presence here. But if there's other things like, we're a food bank and you haven't quite heard of them, it doesn't sound like the one you know of, you might want to wonder, well, how do you fit in with our local food bank that I'm aware of? And again, if you can't make that connection about why they don't have a presence and it seems like they should, again, just a red flag. And then, what is their mission? There are lots of different types of charities out there. Some charities, their mission is to collect funds to then give to other organizations. Sometimes it's to collect funds and a lot of volunteer hours to get certain projects done. Other times they're working with building job skills and people. So a lot of their dollars are spent on payroll, investing in people. So if you look at the financials for kind of different types of charities, they will look quite different. And it's without knowing what their mission is, it's hard to really analyze kind of some of those numbers to get a feel for whether it's a good or a bad charity. And then, finally, what percentage of funds are spent on program delivery, management, and fundraising? Most larger charities, even medium-sized charities, have this information available. And then you can sort of match that up with how you feel where your dollars need to be spent. There are certainly some charities that spend a lot of money paying other people to fundraise for them. And then there are other charities that spend almost nothing on fundraising, and almost all their dollars go directly into program delivery. Okay, so there's lots of different types of charities, and it helps to understand kind of what their mission is, and then you can analyze kind of that second question to get a little better feel. Now, if you're looking at national organizations, there are actually charity rating organizations that will score them. And they can really help with a lot of the large organizations, things like Red Cross, American Cancer Society, any of those really big name, nationwide March of Dimes type organizations. And they will also provide some basic information, some of those financials that I talked about, contact information, and also sort of some comparisons. So what does this medical research charity look like compared to another medical research charity? So we're not comparing the American Cancer Society to Heart of the Valley Animal Shelter, because they're just entirely different. So it's going to help with that. In terms of a statewide one, a handful of Montana larger charities will show up on here, but many of our very high quality, good charities that are locally based are not going to have a rating. They're simply not big enough to sort of show up on the radar. But again, just another way that you can verify some information so that you don't get scammed, and you've identified a good charity that meets the needs of where you want your dollars to go. So before I kind of open up for any more questions here, I want to kind of wrap up with a couple of different things, a couple of tips that kind of transcend all of these scams. And one of them is never provide personal information, whether it's via phone, whether it's email, text, social media, for any conversation that you didn't initiate. Again, so if that call comes to you, you weren't expecting it, you get the email, you don't respond to that email, don't respond to that text directly, or the social media message, independently try to verify the contact information if you're interested in looking further into that organization, whether it be a government organization like Social Security, or whether it be unemployment, or whether it be a charity, right? So don't provide personal information if you didn't initiate that call. Number two is really just simply hang up if you have any question. Then you find contact information independently. So if this is, let's say, from the power company, go take a look at your last statement, their webpage. Find contact information independently of whoever called you, the letter you got, the email you received, and then you reach out to them and say you're trying to verify the situation that happened. And if it's a real situation, they'll be able to do that. And if it's a scam, they won't, and you won't have lost any money, and they'll probably be glad to know that, hey, somebody is pretending to be the power company, and we're the power company, we want to know about that, so that we can, let other people know and hopefully prevent other people from falling victim to that scam. Take your time, research the situation. Almost never does something need to be done in the next hour, today, right? Tomorrow is just fine. You can wait till the office opens at 8 a.m. tomorrow and call in to verify that information. So if there's ever a time crunch, you must do it right now, any of those kind of things. Again, just a real red flag. Take your time, make sure you're comfortable making that. And then you don't have to make that decision right on the spot. And then two, if you do receive a scam and you've identified that, hey, this looks fishy, tell the authorities. And there's a couple different groups that you can tell depending on the situation. You can always tell your sheriff or police department, and they may also share that information or direct you to also share it with another organization or two. If it's securities related, they're going to direct you to our state commissioner of securities and insurance, which is again Troy Downing's office currently. They like to know this information so that they can watch for other people and maybe help prevent them by putting out news releases and things to say, hey, something's fishy with this. Be on the watch out for something from the phone company or whoever it might be. FINRA with the broker check also has the ability for you to report issues with securities fraud. The insurance industry, also Troy Downing's office there. If it's an insurance related scam, they can help because again, you have to have registered agents and then you can get them involved to help. But if you're not sure, the sheriff's office is always a great place to start. The Treasury Department and Social Security also have fraud lines, just like the Department of Labor does for unemployment insurance. The Montana Department of Revenue also has a place that you can report fraud as well. So whatever you think that fraud's related to, the agency probably has a way that you can report it. And they really do appreciate when you report that so that they kind of get a level of what kind of scammers are doing to see if they can block any of that sort of at the system level or go after and try to identify, who the source of this scam is. But again, if you're ever unsure, the sheriff or the police department is always a great place to start. And if they don't necessarily can't help you, they can often direct you to the right agency that can help as well. The Montana Attorney General's office, I just should mention there, they also get involved. They're some of the ones that do some of the prosecuting on this. So they've also got some folks that work on consumer scams and things as well. Now, I mentioned a number of resources, so I'm going to leave this slide up here, get a quick drink of water, and then I'll tell you about a few of these. It's the end of the day and my voice is barely holding out here for talking for an hour. So again, I did mention the Montana Commissioner of Securities and Insurance, that is the state auditor in Montana. They're responsible for overseeing securities industry and also the insurance industry. So anything related to licensed securities or insurance, they're going to be the one that they've got some fraud prevention tips, but then also you can report fraud to them and they can help you research into brokers and insurance companies and things like that. Broker Check by FINRA, this is a national group. You'll see actually that Broker Check is part of the Montana Commissioners of Insurance because it's a nationwide database. So they're going to work closely together in terms of looking up licensed brokers as well. U.S. Treasury Inspector, they also get involved specifically in some tax related items. The Securities and Exchange Commission has some fraud awareness as well. And then I generally don't always promote private companies, but there are some great resources from some different private companies on protecting people from fraud. And AARP is one of those that has a really good fraud watch network, they call it. So if you want to go to the AARP site there for Fraud Watch, they do have some good tips. And I think it's pretty current in terms of trends, things they've seen recently among their members. And again, as folks get into their 70s and 80s, they're more likely to be targeted by scammers. So for a group that works with generally older Montanans, they've kind of got their pulse on those issues and are trying to protect their members' finances. So I think there's some great resources there. And for those of you that aren't in your 70s or 80s, but you maybe have family members, this can be, just a good thing to share with them some information too, some tips, and tell them that you're always willing to help them verify if they get a call they're not sure about. Because you do commonly hear stories of grandma and grandpa as they got a little older, they got a little mixed up and somebody called and they sent a check and they'd already sent a check, or, they thought it was the local organization calling them, but it wasn't, but they still sent a check, and or even set up regular withdrawals out of their account, things like that. So older family members, friends, neighbors, a little bit of help for some of those folks that can also do a lot to help prevent fraud. So the final thing here is, I do work for Montana State University Extension. So if you've got some follow-up questions, please feel free to send me an email. You can give me a call here in my office as well, and I can direct you to some of these resources, or if you've got a specific question, I might be able to help you answer that a little bit more in depth or a little more specific to your situation. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing here and see if we've got any additional questions.
Okay, so I definitely have questions. Can I start?
You bet.
Okay, so you said one is not necessarily scam related, I don't think, but you said an ACH transfer. I'm not sure what that is.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that. I used some technical language. So
That's okay.
that's automated clearinghouse, but that's going to be your common like payment from your checking account that's then say directly to pay your credit card bill or something. So it's not a check that's mailed. You may be paying your energy bill that way directly from your checking account. So that's the technical name for how those funds move from one account to the other.
Okay, great. All right, I have a whole lot of stickies over here. So let me see. One thing was the ones that you mentioned, the scams, are the more outlandish ones still around? Like, I mean, I had some patrons come to me, oh, I don't know, that was probably 4 or 5 years ago, about the African prince and the $1 million or millions of dollars that are trapped in there in Africa.
Yep.
And whatever. Is that still going on, or?
You know, as surprising as it might seem, people fall for those scams every year, even if they seem outlandish. You know, it only takes one or two folks. You know, I know I had a relative that, you know, got a call that said, you know, that, hey, this is your pastor and we need you to send some gift cards, you know, over because we're going to give them to somebody. And it was not who it was supposed to be. And he actually had purchased the gift cards, but still had them. And then he called to verify, where should I take these? And that's when he found out this wasn't actually real. So yeah, those things do happen. And once that money's been wired or a gift card has been purchased and the code sent away, it oftentimes is very difficult to track that money down.
Mm-hmm. And then along with that, so what if, I mean, I know you said, you explained it a little bit. What if somebody comes to us and says, I need help with this? What would be the best way? I guess the sheriff's office or the police department, if we don't know, or if the person doesn't know where this scam fits into the grand scheme of things, I guess.
Yeah, if you're not sure where to start, it's always a great resource to reach out to the sheriff or police department. And again, they can certainly help you in some situations. They may also they work with, you know, the Commissioner of Securities and Insurance Office on investigations. So, you know, if they say, hey, this looks like an insurance related thing, they're probably going to reach out to that office directly on behalf of you. But they may also say, okay, we've taken a report of this, we're watching for it. You may also want to call and then get you in touch with that. So finding out a little bit more about, you know, the scam specifically can help direct as to whether, hey, we should let Social Security Administration know, or we should let Department of Labor know about this, or Department of Revenue. You know, it's kind of specific to the situation. But the nice thing about the sheriff's office is they've got relationships with all of those folks and they can help you get connected to the right people.
Mm-hmm. And along those same lines again, could you send me the resource list at the end, the contacts?
You bet. I'll send my slide deck to you and feel free to distribute that as you see fit.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then I have one more question.
And we got a couple in the chat as well too.
Okay. So on Facebook, for example, I keep seeing these tests, like, what is your leprechaun name? And, you know, it's like, you are born in July, so it's whatever. And then you're born on, you know, the day of your birth is a Wednesday. And then you pick this funny leprechaun name.
Right.
Is that, I mean, I've always thought that was like information mining for scammers later somehow. I don't know how that works, but I'm very leery of these things.
Yeah, and you know, the common term, you know, initially, especially when a lot of those were on web-based, was clickbait. So you got this neat thing, click here and find out your leprechaun name, right? Mm-hmm. So you're like, oh, I'd kind of like to know my leprechaun name. That sounds fun. Mm-hmm. And some of them legitimately are simply, you know, just a fun little game or something that somebody's added.
Yeah.
But others are, like you said, they've asked what the first letter of your first name is so that they can match something up, and they want to know that your birth year and the first letter. And now they're starting to get some personal information. So, in general on those, I would be a little bit wary. Maybe you could lie a little bit about your age or something if you really want to click on it and see what your leprechaun name is. And that's also where you saw a lot of malware type information too, was on these. And again, clickbait was kind of the generic thing because they put this headline up there like, your favorite actor has a secret. Click here to find it, to find out what whoever, and you're kind of like, well, I like that actor. I wonder what his secret is. And that's kind of the whole idea, is they're kind of your curiosity they're playing on. So yes, be a little bit wary of those. Not every one of those is a scam. Some of that's also just marketing. I mean, just like if you go to the newspaper's website, they try to make the headline interesting, so that you're like, oh, I wonder what did happen at the commission meeting last night. And that's just simply journalism.
Yeah.
But yes, that's certainly something to be a little wary of, especially the more detailed they start to get within there. So,
Okay.
Let me jump over and take the question out of the chat window, and then we'll see if we've got any additional ones. So the question from David here is, do you happen to know if the number of scams reported last year went up because there are more scammers or because there are more opportunities to scam right now? Well, David, that's a really hard question to answer because we never really know how many scammers there are. I mean, some are web-based, some are almost computer generated, like with a text message or something. And it could be one computer scamming hundreds of people, or it could be a specific phone call to a person. So it's hard to quantify. And even if you did have really good data on scamming, we're only knowing the people that got caught. And many people feel ashamed if they get scammed and don't tell anybody. So I lost $100 to this gift card scam. I'm not going to tell my friends I'm the one that got scammed, but that also means it doesn't get reported. So oftentimes, we don't have a really great count in terms of how many people actually got scammed, how much was recovered, things like that. So I would say there were certainly a lot of opportunities that were new last year, but just because, the stay-at-home orders, this contact tracing were all things that were completely new. We had stimulus programs that were, sending checks out. People that didn't file had to get their address in, and they didn't want to miss out on stimulus money. So there was a lot of really new things, and people that might have been looking for, boy, if I could get an extra $300 of unemployment benefits, that would really help. So they're willing to maybe take a risk on something that they wouldn't have in a prior year. So I think 2020 and now here into 2021, that certainly opened the door to scammers. And unfortunately, these doors that were left open a little bit by these new programs, scammers did take advantage of. So it will probably be a couple years before we kind of have a little bit better numbers in terms of prosecutions, investigations, totals and things like that are reported. But I would certainly think that, I don't know about more scammers, but I'm sure more people got scammed in the last 12 months than probably in a normal year. But even in a normal year, way more people than should, lose their money to a variety of these different scams.
So that's a question kind of that I had, was what can people do after the fact other than report? Is there any way for them to kind of reclaim what they've lost?
Yeah, so it really depends on the scam. It also depends on the type of person who scammed you. So let me give you a couple examples there. So one is, let's say that there's a licensed securities firm that's in good standing in Montana, and maybe they've got a licensed broker, but that broker didn't follow the rules and sold you an unlicensed security. In that case, the firm actually has the responsibility for their employees. So there may be a settlement and the firm may make you whole if there's a loss. And that occasionally happens. And those are actually things that you can look up at broker check when something like that happens, where a particular individual at a firm causes someone to lose money fraudulently. The company then is forced and has the responsibility to make that person whole. So in those cases, yes, you can certainly get your money back. Montana there are times too when maybe money was wired or transferred out of an account, a bank account, and they can track where it went and maybe also recover it by identifying where those funds went to. That's not always the case, but there are sometimes situations where if you follow the trail of the money, that it can be found. I would say that's somewhat rare, especially in like our Nigerian prince story. That happens once it's turned into a gift card or wired. It can be very difficult to kind of follow that all the way through. But even if they can't recover the money, and if it has any impact on your credit score, being able to have a police report to say, yes, this happened, it was reported as a loss, can help you down the road if it shows up on your credit score or something. And also it helps the authorities if they know that, hey, 10 people got hit with this scam last month. Maybe we can do a public service award. Maybe we can watch for this particular routing number or something that was involved in that and block it so that the next person doesn't get scammed. So even if they personally can't help you, you can help your neighbors by making sure that's reported. And maybe they can gather a little bit of information from you and a little bit from somebody else and a little bit from somebody else and track down and prosecute folks, because they do regularly prosecute people. Both the Commissioner of Securities Insurance is a prosecuting office. The Montana Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney General in Montana have all prosecuted fraud cases every year. And then FINRA actually among its members has an arbitration process to help settle these kind of things as well. So there certainly are mechanisms out there that help people get their money back. I don't have a good percentage. There are certainly a lot of folks that get scammed and it's simply gone. But reporting it, there is some chance that you can be made whole. And if it was something related to your credit card or maybe even your debit card, it's possible your bank has some policies that if you report it within a certain amount of time, that they may be able to also reimburse you for some or all of what you lost. But again, it's going to vary by the scam, who was involved, and those kind of things. So
Sure.
And I see we've got another question in the chat here. How often are scammers caught and what happens to them when they are? Again, I don't know how many scammers there are out there. There are certainly prosecutions that are effective every year, both in the state, nationally, and regionally as well, where they are caught and they are prosecuted, and the penalties can vary. And then specifically, if it's related to someone who has a license, like an insurance agent or a securities broker, they can have their license taken away in addition to criminal prosecution and fines, but they can be barred from ever selling securities again. So again, it depends on the scam, but yes, they are prosecuted and there certainly are penalties for some of those. Now, that email that you got about the Nigerian prince from someone that may be based in, let's just actually say they were in Nigeria, chances of being able to prosecute, someone in that situation is probably a lot harder. But if it's somebody that has a tie to the U.S. or has a bank account in the U.S., where they may be able to do something at least with the assets that are in the U.S. if there's a situation like that.
Great. Did you have any other questions, Brianna? Because I had a lot of questions, but I had all my questions answered, so I'm good.
I had one other, and my question is specifically, so I have a grandparent who is terrified of scam calls. And her thing is, one of the things she thinks may happen is that she may say something and the words that she used may be recorded and then used out of context later on. Is that a thing that actually happens, or? I have no idea.
I've heard the same story where, somebody calls and you say, hi, this is Joel. And now they've got my voice saying, hi, this is Joel. So they're going to clip that recording. And then when they call my bank or something, they're going to play the recording back of what customer is this? And then my name will show up in my voice. I'm not aware of too many organizations that actually use voice recognition technology where having my specific voice would help them get access to my bank account. But I've certainly heard that story. I don't know, maybe more likely might be if you know, they recorded a whole bunch, and maybe you could then, maybe they're recording you, Brianna, and then they'll use your voice to call your grandmother and sort of string together some words to say, hey, grandma, I got in trouble. I need some, and it's now your voice, and you've now convinced your grandma that it's you because it sounds like you. But I can't say that I've actually known any actual instances where that actually scammed someone out of their money.
Yeah, I just wondered if that was a common thing. It sounds like if it happens, it's pretty uncommon.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and it's hard again because so many things are unreported, and or even they're reported to different agencies. So maybe the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office got this group of things, the state got, Department of Labor got this group, and getting a list that isn't duplicating each other, but is also, you know, sort of effectively capturing what's going on in the state, I think can be a little bit hard. I know the Attorney General in Montana's office, at least when Tim Fox was there, actually did some kind of top 10 lists and some current scams and put out some information on things they were currently seeing. But I think it's a little bit challenging in terms of saying last year there were 87 of this type of scam, and this year there's 92, just because of the nature of how it's reported and the number of people too that, you know, if I got scammed out of my $50 for a gift card, I'll just keep it quiet and not tell anybody that I'm the one that got scammed. I think that's, you know, rather than say, you know, I'm the one that lost money, it's easier to just, okay, I lost my $50. I won't tell anybody, and they won't know that I'm the one that fell for it.
Mm. Then there was another, it's not a question, but a comment. I don't have any questions, but I'd like to say thanks to Joel for sharing his knowledge and giving a great presentation. And I think that's a thumbs up in there. And I wanted to also say thank you. This was a great presentation, and we are recording this, and we will post it on our YouTube channel for people who might not have been able to watch tonight. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Great. Yeah.
All right, thanks for having me, and I hope the rest of the series goes well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.